Good evening, everybody. Here we are once again with another short, quick, but a very, very fruitful session on understanding how the reading comprehensions are to be taken up. Before we move on, if you all can very quickly just let me know if I'm audible enough, because I'm assuming I'm visible because I can see myself. But I do need to know if I am audible as well, because if we are, without any further ado, let us just dive into the passages and figure out what is it that we have in store for today. If anybody can just write on the chat box as to me being audible, or a thumbs up, or just anything, so that I know that we're good to go. And that's going to be so. Can I use Drishti monthly magazine for CA backlogs? Why would you not want to use any monthly magazines? That in itself is an amazing compendium. So maybe you can just go ahead with what you have in store first, and once you're done with that, maybe you can always use the other sources for your revision, or however you'd want to collate your revision material. But start with what you have. I guess that's more relatable that way. Perfect then. All right, now that you guys can hear me, let us begin again with today's session of taking up two reading comprehensions from this year's CLAT paper, figuring out how exactly should we have done it, particularly picking onto the vocabulary words. Now, I hope you guys are sitting with a pen and a paper. If not, quickly make a pit stop to the nearest table, pick up a pen and a paper, because we need to be jotting down the words. Now, see, with words, what happens is there is no sure short syllabus that comes along with the words. If anybody is to ever tell you that these are going to be, the words onto which you need to be picking up, or these are the words you need to be knowing, always know that that can only be something that can only be suggestive in nature, right? There is no solid syllabus, or there's no index that comes for words wherein I can say that, okay, these are the words that you need to be knowing because these are the words you're going to be asked from. Vis-a-vis, there is no, there's no guarantee as to whether the words that you do would not be asked. Words are always a wager, they are always a bet. Will you know what is coming or what is not coming? Can be entirely up to, fate. It is destined whether it is going to be, it's going to be asked or not. But I think words should always be embraced looking at the larger picture. Knowing or having a good hold on words by default motivates, and it just elevates the confidence. I mean, let us say, this goes without saying, and this happens with everybody. Even today, I mean, me being a verbal faculty, when I have people in front of me who have such beautiful and eloquent articulation, I feel a little intimidated, and that's a very human thing to happen. So whenever you're picking onto the words, guys, I'd say the best way to go about with the words is always to ensure that these words are there for you. I mean, with you to stay. Grow with the words, use them, sort of, largen the scope of your vocabulary, and just let these be a developer of personality and not something that you're doing, being very myopic about it, thinking कि मुझे सिर्फ examination point of view से इन words को याद रखना है. If you do that, and if you try to inculcate into your daily life, you're going to see that words can actually be quite a tool, and they can actually be super helpful when it comes to decoding. And the one thing that we can really rely on, wherein I can give you a guarantee that, okay, these are the kinds of words that you definitely need to be knowing, will always account for popularity. So if those words are popular, you need to be knowing what those are likely to mean, which is exactly why you're going to see that maximum faculties keep pushing on to reading the newspaper. Because for every time you're going to be reading the newspaper, you're going to see that, the words are going to keep popping up here and there. And those words are something that we definitely want you to know. Why? Because understanding from an invigilator's point of view, I know that if I have recommended a source to you and I'm expecting that all of the aspirants pan India are requiring to be reading that, then me asking something from there is a valid competition, rather than me picking up an arcane word, a word which nobody's ever heard of, probably from the dinosaur era, and then giving it to you. Because then that is not going to be competition, that's just going to be an exaggerated version of throwing in जानबूझ के difficulty level को amp up करने का. So instead of being vicious, we want to be at a level playing field, which is why words should always be accounted for being the popular accounted by by understanding or grasp on the popularity, and those are the ways you need to be attending. Today again, what we're going to do is, not only are we going to deconstruct the passage, of course we are going to ensure that we understand all of the the intricacies and all of the nitty-gritty that goes around with the information, but yes, we will also be picking up the words, because these words are something that we definitely want to be confident of, that we go stronger after the hour that we have, at least by so many words. Hi everybody. Hi. I was so sorry. I was just so in between the introduction that I sort of just missed wishing you guys a hi. Good evening. Good afternoon हो चुका है. अब good evening में आ गए हैं हम लोग. Ma'am, will we do CR in legal classes as well on YouTube like this? Oh, well, I will be taking up CR as well. So I'm going to be doing English today. And once we finish with the 4 passages of English that we have, we then move on to CR. Legal is a good, I'm going to take the suggestion of yours, and I'm really going to work it with the HO and pick it out if we can do a similar course for the legal as well. And what time should be allotted to a particular passage? So, Ananya, ideally, the kind of time that you need to be allotting in your CLAT examination per passage has to be 6.5 minutes. And when I say 6.5 minutes, I mean the 6.5 minutes need to include the reading and, of course, the answering as well. 6.5 is an ample amount of time for you to give it a good read, which does not even have to be skimming and scanning. It is like a good immersive reading along with doing the question. So anywhere between 2.5 minutes is what you might take to be finishing the passages, and of course reading the passage, and the remaining 4 minutes can be dealt with and dwelled with into doing the questions. And this in totality makes a perfect amount of time that you are expected to be spending onto a question. Ma'am, is it the introduction class? Well, Sneha, we did a class last week and we talked a little about reading comprehensions. Any which ways, you don't need an introduction because you can just pick it up from here. We're not picking up anything which is rocket science or anything, which requires the base and the foundation that needs to be laid out. We're just picking up the CLAT passages. And throughout the series, what we're going to do is we're going to keep handpicking the passages only to be understanding the LOD, the technicality, the vocabulary, and the kind of genre that they wish to dwell in. And thereby, of course, keep talking about a little bit of tricks, strategies, stunts that come along whenever we tend to be doing reading comprehension. Ma'am, I'm taking 1 hour of legal and solving 5, which is okay. So, see, whenever you guys are spending in more time, it is okay to be spending in time. But then if you're spending, say, for example, 1 hour in doing about 5 to 6 passages, then your accuracy must also relate. It needs to coincide with the accuracy. So if you spend 1 hour and if you say that your accuracy is not coming along, then I think something is a conceptual miss there. But if your accuracy seems to be going strong, then time is something that can be rearranged and that can be put within the bounds. So we have multiple homegrown tricks wherein you can apply those and you can always get better with the time. But again, the one thing that's really required is going to be that you keep checking onto the accuracy, because if the accuracy takes a slip, then that actually is a red flag. That's actually a cry for help, wherein you might be required to be putting in some more. So, ma'am, I'm taking, ma'am, I think my practice 6 to 8 minutes, which is good enough. Ma'am, English, I'm taking time to solve 30 minutes, 3 passages. Again, Madhvi, if the accuracy is going strong, nothing like it. But if that is not what is happening, then I think we need to sort of, rearrange our strategy a little bit. Ma'am, what topics do you advise in diverse reading for better? So, Kimaya, for diverse reading, I'd say that pick up the genres that you are sort of, not being very strong at. And the best way to do it is your mocks. So when you pick up a mock, you're going to see that, the passages are laid out eclectically. We have passages from all the genres that have been given to us. But you're going to see that your accuracy is going to sort of spike up in a couple of passages and then it's really going to go bad. That's where you understand that this seems to be the kind of area where you might want to attempt and get better. Investor week. So this is like a handy advice that I tend to give all of my students. I mean, all you guys are of course my students, but I tend to give it to the offline students mostly, and that is spend a week figuring out where exactly your weak sections are and spend a week doing that, so that every week you have something new to look forward to and you are not confused. You're not like, you're not baffled as to what is it that you need to pick and what is it that you need not pick. So if I have the mock to myself and it being a Sunday today, for example, and I see that, okay, I get a passage on economics and my economics is really screwed up. I am not able to perform well in economics. What am I going to do? I'm going to take the entire week and read economic content and then be able to see did I get any better. Now the next mock again, I might just have a passage, which is again going to, it's again going to be bad news for me. Then I'm again going to pick up that topic and I'm going to make sure that the entire of the week I spend reading some really good content over it. And I'm going to start with easy stuff and then on and off, of course, keep giving myself a little bit of, push to be reading a little difficult content as well. So this is one way you can keep a track. Now, if you read every day different contents, you might really be reading diversely. But over here, what is also going to happen is, are you really getting a hang on what is it that you've read or not? Is not something that you can say with guarantee, and that ultimately does not land up coming on to being productive reading. So if you pick up something and if you keep reading it for maybe 3 or 4 days, that is when it will actually grow on you. That's where you will begin to evolve and you'll be like, हाँ यार अभी थोड़ा समझ में आ रहा है. एक बार पढ़ने में it might just be a good article. So sometimes you guys might also be like, मैम कभी कभी तो इकोनॉमिक्स का पैसेज समझ में आ जाता है, कभी कभी आता ही नहीं है. That's because you're having a good day. So there's a lot of externalities, that go along with whenever we are trying to be doing anything in reading. So for you to be able to be consistent and to actually know कि हाँ भाई मेरे को कितना समझ में आ रहा है and how well am I being able to fare with this is going to be something that will only be identified once you start doing that religiously. So give it at least 3 4 days. Anything less than that is it's calling shotgun. It's of no use. So give yourself at least that many number of days to be able to delve in it to know if it's working for you, if it is not working for you, and of course, take it from there. And no two people have the same strategy. Please always remember. So just because something is being told to somebody doesn't mean you're supposed to Xerox it. You are supposed to take it in the stride of it and be flexible with it. So use it as per your requirement because everybody is giving here, to be able to give out good advice. But will that advice work on you or not? It's like just trying to understand if somebody is being told a certain style of clothing. So that style of clothing might really be trendy, but is it going to fit on all body types? Not really. So is the case with strategies. Strategies they need to be customized. It's not they're not they're not like tailor made that these are how it is going to be for everybody. They have to be something that they have to be bespoke in nature. So just make sure that when you take an advice, you are taking it with a pinch of salt, which means that you have to see if that works for you or not, right? Okay, so where were we? Ma'am, can you please tell how to solve literary passages? Now, Divyansh, for solving literary passages. Now, literature happens to be one of the most asked genres, to the extent that the this year's CLAT also had about say 2 3 odd passages of literature. So yes, it is one of the most popular genres, and English and literature sort of they go hand in hand. So they're like what's bred in the bone will come out in the flesh. So literature थोड़ा सा English के लिए भी बहुत सगा हो जाता है. It is something which is very it feels as if it is their own child. So a sort of genre which you can't really escape. So I think for starting with literature, you might want to just go to some old school literature, right? It could also be picking up your NCRT textbooks or anything like that and just reading all of those. Or maybe, pick up some good authors and start reading about their content. And then maybe you can go on to exploring. But first, get the reading right. With literature, half the time what happens is हमें ये नहीं समझ में आ रहा होता है कि हम लोग पढ़ क्या रहे हैं. Because there is so much going on, there's so much drama, and then there's so much there's so much of there's a lot of theatrics, there's a lot of histrionics that go around whenever you tend to be reading literature. So I think most of the times where we fall short of is not being able to understand the content. And that is what fails us to be able to do the questions because questions are never tough. So अगर questions नहीं बन रहे ना किसी के भी, so I think it is a clear-cut indication that it is the understanding of the content which is a little short-handed. That is where you need to brace up a little, and it's not really the questions ever. So just get that thing sorted for yourself. So we have, ma'am, when I increase my comprehension gets compromised, how to do so? Arvind, always remember accuracy and attempt are inversely proportional to each other. By saying inversely proportional, I mean to say अगर एक बढ़ेगा तो दूसरा घटेगा ही घटेगा, and ये तय बात है, and ये सिर्फ तुम्हारे लिए नहीं होगा, ये सबके लिए होता है. That is where you have to learn to be smart, to be knowing which ones to leave and which ones to attempt. In a 2 hour paper, 120, of course, is a doable scheme of affair. It is not that you can't be doing 120, but you have to know that, all of your questions come with a negative marking. So, which ones to leave so that you're able to spend a little extra time onto the ones that are really required and get your understanding solid. These are a lot of, so there are a lot of permutations that go alongside just your practice. So, whenever you're giving, which is why, when you guys are giving in the mock, you're always forced to sit for the mock. It's not that we want to demean you or we want you guys to feel shallow about the kind of marks that you're getting, but a mock lets you learn a lot more about your individuality. It tends to, help you maneuver a lot of other difficulties that might come while attempting the paper. So those are the kinds of things that you really have to work upon. If you think that the moment you increase your speed, you push your speed, your accuracy goes down, the best way to do is grow organically. Now what happens over here is we are very inflated in our heads in terms of aspiring how many questions we want to do. So I've seen a lot of students do that, and that I feel is one of the biggest blunders that they get into, and that is whenever they begin attempting, they want to increase their attempts manyfold. Nobody ever comes to me saying that, ma'am, I just want to increase my attempt by, say, 2 questions or 3 questions. And that is how exactly it should be. So when you begin by thinking that, okay, I'm going to say, for example, do, 10 extra questions and come. The pressure of doing 10 more questions will by default, it is going to negatively impact your quality somewhere or the other. And this is again a very human thing. We are not bots. We have this anxiety that creeps in, and this will always affect on your overall score. But on the other hand, if you keep very reasonable targets by thinking that, okay, in this mock, maybe I want to do 2 more questions than my previous attempt. So if my attempt was, say, 60, 65, then I only want to do 67. But then in the next mock, my benchmark becomes 67. Now, see, when you're pushing yourself by only 2 questions, there isn't anything which is anatomically going wrong in you. You're not befuddled. You're not like मेरे को क्या समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. That's not what happens. But keeping a target of 10 questions and then pushing yourself for those 10 questions, that's being very mean to yourself. So maybe one of the ways in which you can try and not compromise on the accuracy and also keep pushing on to the attempt is just increase yourself by 1 or 2. Then stay put for a couple of days. And maybe push yourself again by thinking another 2. So it is only going to take you some 7, 8 mocks to be able to get a hike. So even if you're doing 3 questions and 24 questions ka attempt, 8 to 10 mocks लगेगा करने में उसको. But this way, you are going to let your body come to terms, your mind to come to terms with what you are doing. And it is not going to be like an overnight haul that you're doing. Because किसी एक मॉक में हो सकता है कि बहुत बढ़िया हो जाए. But अगली मॉक में अगर उतना बढ़िया नहीं होगा, so that sinking feeling that you're going to get, that is going to be something that you might just not be able to redeem yourself from. So that's how you have to just be a little careful with. So ma'am, in my mock 16 के आगे नहीं जा पा रहा है. Madhvi, I hope we're talking about the English section, the marks of the English section. So you attempting 16, and in fact your marks not going above 16, what you have to do is you have to start identifying the question stem that's going wrong for you and the genre. Write it down and then see which of the following are you going to be, how is it that you can get better, and then isolate yourself and try and do those questions only. So अगर तुम्हें दिख रहा है कि main idea continuously गलत हो रहा है या vocabulary continuously गलत हो रहा है, then maybe just sit and isolate yourself from all of the other question stems and give half an hour to 40 minutes extra onto only those specific questions. You'll get a hang of it. You'll understand. You prefer, so ma'am, is the reading word power? See, it's a very good book. Word power made easy. Yes, it's a very good book, but it's not really required at this point of time. At this point of time, what you do require is reading the newspaper on daily basis, jotting down the words and making sure those are the words that you know. And by words, knowing the words, I mean to say you don't have to mug up the words. You just have to be aware of those words. It's like if that word ever, you stumble upon that word, it should just come out as a flashback कि हाँ यार ये पढ़ा था और ये इसका meaning है. So I'm not asking you to learn it, but yes, you might want to, like you might want to familiarize yourself with those words. That's something which is really required. I prefer Aeon. It is okay. Absolutely, Kimaya. Whatever works for you. If you like reading from Aeon, please go ahead and read from Aeon. If you like reading from any of the other websites, so we've got long forms, we've got long reads, we've got Marginalian, we've got Aeon. All of these have some really good content. So if you have the understanding and the bandwidth for it, I think all sites are good sites. Where are we next? So, ma'am, we have read questions. Okay, so are you to read the questions first or are you to read the passage again? This is also to be customized. I, for one, am the kind of person I read the questions first, but that doesn't happen every time. A lot of times I also have to read the passage first. It just depends on, how you want to strategize yourself. For me, strategy varies from genre to genre. And I'm just giving you an example to be able to tell you that different people can have different strategies. The passages that I really like or the genre that I'm really okay with, I always read. Acha. For me, genre plays a very important role because I don't start with the first passage. So if I were a CLAT aspirant and if I was ever, given a mock to myself to be starting to solve, I would have not started with question number one. I would have taken the first 30 seconds to only browse through the mock and see which of the following are the genres that have been put forward. If passage 3 was what I liked the most, I would have started with passage 3. Which is why for me reading the question becomes more important because the question automatically gives me a peekaboo. Or the most underestimated thing in the English paper, the English section, it is the source. I can give this in writing that a dozen of you guys tend to negate the source or you don't give importance to the source. Knowing where the extract is from can actually be a very, very it can be a very it can be a very established way to be knowing what genre it is, what sort of reading do you require, and where the extract is from. All of your main ideas are taken care of the moment you give a little bit of address to the extract and the source that it seems to be coming from. So those are going to be a few things that you have to pay attention to. So for me, say for example, questions become important. But again, in genres like sports, wherein I don't like anything what is happening, then at that point of time, what is it that I tend to do? I tend to do the passage first because it's very important for me to keep a grip on the passage. So I change as per my liking. But both of them have their pros and both of them have their cons. So they all come with, the yin and the yang for themselves, which is why see what you work better with. Try yourself on at least 10 passages each and then decide which one is going to be more fruitful. Don't go on any hearsay. Please don't do that. So ma'am, English में logical bad, how to improve? Okay, there's a lot of questions, Jayavardhan, in one statement. So, ma'am, English good, logical bad, how to improve legal? So, I don't know what exactly are you asking, my dear. Which subject do you want to get better with? You'll have to probably rephrase. Uh, okay, so we then have, hello, ma'am, what skill I need to improve and what roadmap do you have to? So, Yash, for English, there is no roadmap as such. Reading is the way, reading is the key to it. So, this is something that is actually a standing instruction for all of you guys, and for whoever is, who's going to be listening to this later as well. Reading is a non-negotiable activity. There can be no discount with reading in your entire day. You might want to not do reading comprehensions on some day. You might not want to do your lectures on some day, but you can't partake with reading. So if you are reading on daily basis, 80% of your miseries are taken care of. But if you don't read it for even one day, you're going to see that, it's ripple effects. The way it is going to negatively affect you will be very prominent the very next day. So please make sure that कुछ और करो ना करो रीडिंग जरूर करो. And reading बहुत ही convenient activity है. Reading के लिए कोई ये नहीं बोलता है कि आपको जब तक unless and until you don't sit on your study table, you cannot be reading. Maybe when you're eating, you can. When you're traveling, you can read. There's so many ways in which you can read. So just inculcate reading as your daily as a part of your daily activity, and not something that you might want to do, which is going to be like, a part of your studying schedule. And one more thing, please understand, this is something that which I hope I could just etch it in stone and give it to you guys. But reading the comprehension is not reading. I need you guys to do reading which has to be independent of any other ulterior objectives. When you are reading the passage, you are not reading to evolve. You're not reading to grow in your perspective. You are reading to answer. It is only when you read with no other, attachment of its own. Question nahi answer karna hai, vocabulary nahi padni hai. That is when you grow with the reading that you're doing. And this evolving of perspective is very important, because अगर वो नहीं होगा तो tunnel vision ही रह जाओगे ना. So please know, reading a CR passage is not reading, reading a legal passage is not reading, reading an English passage is not reading. You are reading those, but that is for that's for another motive. Reading a newspaper for the heck of reading, for the heck of being able to understand and grow your bandwidth is reading. And that is the uncorrupt reading that you guys need to be doing on daily basis. Okay, ma'am, could you please share your top three tips? So, Sam, I'm going to be here for a really long time, I guess, at least until CLAT. So, let's just keep some things for the later times as well. But yes, if I were to really tell you guys what are going to be, my top three tips, the first is going to be, of course, reading. Please make sure that reading is something that you guys are doing on daily basis. Second, please do not fear vocabulary. Vocabulary words are always there to ornament the idea. They never make the idea. So if you feel that मुझे words नहीं आते तो मुझे context नहीं समझ में आएगा, farce. It can never happen like that. Please make sure that vocabulary is something that you're starting to befriend gradually. You are not you're not on enemy terms with vocabulary. And the third is going to be practice. Please make sure you practice. As much as reading comprehension are a very familiar set of activities, because बचपन से वही करते चले आ रहे हैं, but the technicality has been amped up. You have to make sure that unless and until you don't practice and start giving attention to detail, you are not going to be able to survive the reading comprehensions. So make sure that practice is something you're doing and in one sitting. So आधे घंटे अगर हम इंग्लिश सेक्शन को दे सकते हैं तो आधे घंटे में मुझे कितने पैसेजेस करके देने हैं? 4. This is the kind of discipline that I want to inculcate in myself. The more you do this, the more you practice, naturally you will, you'll have like a flow. You'll have like a, inclination towards being doing this. Of course, there are a horde of this, like a full stack of advices that I have, which I will eventually keep, keep bombarding onto you guys. But yes, that's my only problem is I'm not able to make a roadmap. I'm not able to map the articles. Start with mind mapping. Mind mapping typically is the kind of activity wherein you start with the topic, right? And then you go underneath it, and then you divide it further, and then you write underneath it. So basically, what happens is we break the entire passage into a timeline manner, and that's how we go ahead with it. So that's the way we mind map. Takes time, but and you can also summarize. So you can begin with the first paragraph. You can write 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So these are the three takeaways from the first paragraph. Then you get on to paragraph 2. You write a title for it, and then you can go 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So these are again, the top requirements of the second paragraph. So however you want to summarize it, but yes, if you do mind mapping, the more mind map you do, I guess the better it's going to be. How to manage English? Okay, so okay, guys, I'm just going to take a pause here. I want to start with at least one passage because we only have an hour to ourselves. So I want to start with at least the first passage. We'll go in a certain speed so that I have ample time to be able to cater to all of you guys. And maybe next class we'll have an open house wherein we're just talking. I mean, just figuring out what seems to be, the valid problems that we tend to be having. Right then, okay. Now, beginning with, again, something that we were doing in the previous class again, we are going to be picking up the previous paper CLAT passages. The reason why we are doing this is because our intention lies in terms of understanding the vocabulary, but not only that, we also want to understand how exactly does CLAT seek for answers? Where should we be handpicking them from? How should our reading be? how exactly, how immersive should we be or how superficial should we be, and clearly understanding the context of it. To understand the context, what we're going to do is we're going to go line by line and take the words, and not only the words, we're also going to translate the idea, deconstruct the idea, reconstruct the idea to be able to help ourselves understand the passage and the idea better. You never know, maybe a little bit of fragmenting the idea and putting it out to you can actually be one of the ways that can lead you a little to a better understanding. Let's begin with the first passage. Now, everything she wanted was here at Carignano in Kasoli. So जो भी चाहिए था उसको, everything she wanted, जो चीज भी चाहिए थी, it was all there. Here on the ridge of the mountain in this quiet house. And where was it? It was right here at the ridge of this mountain in this quiet house. Now, what do you mean by the word ridge? The word ridge basically means a narrow, long surface. So basically, a ridge is a surface, an elevated surface on a mountain top. That is what is called a ridge. So where was all of this? It was इसी घर में था वो. It was the place at the time of life that she had wanted and prepared for all her life, as she realized on the first day at Carignano with a great, cool flowering of relief. And at last she had it. So it felt as if, she has always wanted, she belonged there. This is what she'd wanted all her life. And the very first day that she came up, that she came to Carignano, it was with this great cool flowering of relief. So flowering is something that is blossoming. Suddenly usko ek sigh of relief hua ki, oh, this is just it what I wanted. She had this realization grow upon herself कि यार मुझे यही तो चाहिए था तब से. She wanted no one and nothing else. And it was not that she wanted people. She wanted materialistic things. Nothing. She wanted nothing of that sort. Whatever else came or happened here would be an unwelcome intrusion or distraction. And in fact, so to say कि अगर कोई और चीज हुई भी वहां पे, other than just her, it would have been an unwelcomed intrusion. So unwelcome means anything which is uninvited. So I'll just write here. Unwelcome basically means anything which is sorry guys, uninvited. And intrusion means anything which is now going to be a wrongful entry or a distraction. And what is a distraction? Is anything that's just going to take your attention away. This she tried to convey to the plodding postman with a cold and piercing stare from the height of the ridge onto his honest bullback. So this was something that she did try to convey also to the plodding postman. Plodding is going to be somebody who's very unexcitedly moving, एकदम ऐसे थका हुआ चलता है, हाथ पैर ऐसे ढीले करके. So that sort of a person becomes plodding. So ऊपर रिच पे खड़ी थी, नीचे देख रही थी, और वहां से ही उसने इतना गंदा piercing stare, इतना incisive stare दिया उसको, as if it's like, when we don't want somebody to come and then we just stare at that person like, okay, why are you here? So that is the kind of idea that was given. So that was such a cold and pure stare that came out while he was just coming. Unfortunately, he did not look up at her on the hilltop, but stared stolidly down at the dust piling onto his shoes as he plodded on. अब unfortunately वो तो ऊपर से घूर रही थी. She was of course staring, trying to make it very clear that please don't come into my zone. There is no reason, you're not even welcomed. But he had not seen any of this and he just went ahead. He was very stolidly walking. Stolidly means calm. To be uninterested, to not show any sort of interest to either side is stolid. Down the pile. अब वो जब चल रहा था तो obviously उसका सारा क्या होता, when he was plodding ऐसे लसराते हुए अपना जूता चल रहा था तो उसके सारे जूते पे dust accumulate हो गई. A bullock man, an oafish ox, she thought bitterly. And then obviously she was so upset. She was just so irritated of the very fact that why on earth is he even coming? So obviously to show her frustration, she started picking up things like a bullock man. वो देखो, ऐसे बुल पे आ रहा है वो. She stepped backwards into the garden and the wind suddenly billowed up and threw the pine branches about as though to curtain her. And then she took one step behind. She wanted to get into the garden. And suddenly the wind billowed up. So billowed basically means to swell up, to fill. So suddenly puri ki puri wind kaise bhar gayi, and it threw up the pine branches and the pine branches started swaying so much as if they wanted to curtain her. Curtain her is basically hide her within. She was grey, tall and thin, and her silk sari made a sweeping, shivering sound, and she fancied and she fancied she could merge with the pine trees and be mistaken for one. And then we're just giving a little bit of drama to the effect over here by understanding a little bit of depiction. So her depiction was she was grey, she was tall, she was thin, she was wearing the silk sari, and वो सारी ऐसे sweeping सी आवाज निकाल रही थी एकदम. And वो तो बस यही सोच रही थी कि कैसे, how if I could just merge with the pine trees and become one, as if nobody could spot me that I'm here. To be a tree, no more and no less. She was all she was prepared to undertake. And she wanted to be no less. She wanted to not be taken as a human. She just wanted to merge into the trees and not be seen by anybody, is what she wanted. What pleased and satisfied her. So, what pleased and satisfied her so here at Carignano was its bareness, barrenness. So, barrenness basically means, this is 1 second, right? Right. So barrenness basically means anything which is not cultivable. That is what is understood by the word barren. So anything which is not cultivable, anything which is not, which is very bland, which is not very fancifully laid out, is what is barren. So what she liked about Carignano was the kind of barrenness it has. This was the chief virtue. Virtue means the main point of all Kasoli, of course, its starkness. And then the author is like, Kasoli mein yahi cheez to bahut achhi hai. It is the starkness. So what do you understand by starkness? The simplicity that comes along. That is what Kasoli is famous for. It had rocks, it had pines, it had light and air. In every direction, there was a sweeping view to the north of the mountains, to the south of the plains. And they just go about by saying that सब कुछ था. There were rocks, there were pines, there was light, there was air. किसी भी direction में देखोगे एक बहुत ही sweeping सा, बहुत ही सुंदर सा view भी दिखेगा आपको. So you could see the hills and then you could see the plains. Occasionally, an eagle swam through its cleared, unobstructed mass of light and air. And occasionally, कभी-कभी eagle भी swoop करती थी, right, on the unobstructed mass of light, because there wasn't a lot. Kasoli is not overtly ornamented with a lot of geographical things. So it's this kind of simplicity that it had, in that's how it was unobstructed. Ma'am, doesn't start mean it does, but Kimai, you have to understand contextually over here. It is going to be the unbarren, the fact that it's very simple. So stark resemblance जब हम लोग बोलते हैं, that is going to be something which is like a blatant resemblance. But when you are talking about this kind of starkness over here, contextually जब हमने barrenness की बात की, तो obviously उसका next adjective भी उसी में लगा होगा. So when we talked about the simplicity that Kasoli had to offer, so that means here the idea of starkness that we are trying to be taking into account is going to be something which is not, which is again, very shallow, which is very, जिसमें extreme bareness होती है, कोई चीज जो बहुत ज्यादा overtly नहीं होती है. And then with all of this, Anne Carignano, her home on the ridge had no more than that. Why should it? The sun shone on its white walls. Its windows were open. The ones facing north opened onto the blue waves of the Himalayas flowing out and up to the line of the ice and the snow sketched upon the sky. While those who faced south looked down the plunging cliff, plunging is deep, to the plain stretching out, flat and sear to the blurred horizon. Blurred is something which is not clear. So then they just go about by saying that, and her home was on the ridge, and what more did she wanted? एक तरफ देखती थी तो इतना beautiful उसको skyline दिखता था, with the mountains of course so beautifully carved by ice. On the one side she would see the plunging cliff. So everything wherever she saw, she had the view of her dreams. Yes, there were some apricot trees close to the house. There were clumps of iris. So clump is एक साथ इकट्ठा करना किसी चीज को. Something in a collection is clump. Iris is a flower that had finished blooming. So from finished blooming, we understand we're talking about the iris. There was a kitchen with a wing of smoke lifting out of its chimney and a stack of wood outside its door. But these were incidental, almost unimportant. So then they go about by saying, हाँ, इन सब में एक habitation भी था. उसका घर था, घर में kitchen भी था. There was of course a garden, there were flowers and all of this, but they were incidental. The word incidental basically means minor accompaniment. कोई चीज जो सिर्फ connected होती है, incident होता है उसका, major चीज नहीं होती है, which is why she says it is almost unimportant. It was something which was not even important. So the passage just talks about how she was so happy with her own solitude, and that she didn't want anybody. And she had gone there, and the reason, and the place where she had gone to. So Carignano also sensed and matched exactly to the kind of place that she was looking, and how they were a beautiful medley of of the me time that she wanted, and the place also added to the kind of solitude that she wanted. And while there were a lot of other things, but this was something that that was the highest virtue of being there, and that was something that she greatly aspired. Extracted with edits and revision from The Fire on the Mountain by Anita Desai. So this is where we have picked it up from. This is what is the source. The moment you get where it has been extracted from, you have to know so that all of your main ideas come into account. Now, how do you find main idea here, Yash? So main ideas are generally found by understanding which of the following is the protagonist, and what is that one idea that we understand from all of the passage, and what is it trying to be talking about. So if I'm trying to be figuring out what the main idea is, of course, I have to have the lady. I have to have the characteristic of the lady. And then I have to understand what is the kind of mahal that's going around. So main ideas को generally identify करने का best तरीका होता है to ask the six W's. Six W's being, one second, I need to. Right. So the six W's clearly being what is happening, why is it happening, where is it happening, when is it happening, how is it happening, and एक और W कौन सा होता है हम लोग का? Where, why, what, when, how, and which place is it happening. So whatever be your main idea, if you are able to understand the answers to all of these questions, you have understood the passage really, really well. And that is one of the most easiest way to understand what the passage seems to be talking about. So let's begin with what is happening. The passage speaks about a girl who is in love with the solitude that she has, and which is why she's chosen a place which actually is very compatible with the kind of personality that she has, and they beautifully blend, they complement each other in such a beautiful way that she's a perfect she's like a perfect addition to that place. Why has she gone there? Probably because she enjoys that kind of that alone time, the loneliness that she has, because there is this one idea where she wanted to be one among the trees so that nobody could see. Where is it happening? It is happening in Carigno. When is it happening? We don't really know where is it happening, but we do know that it seems to be like a good day or a good time, because we have the mountain clad the ice clad mountains, and then we have quite a lot of description that ways. Which is the place again that's taken care of, and how is it happening? We know that she has gone to a place, and over there she has given out her idea of the fact that whatever she was desiring for was something that she found in that one place. So a combination of all of these is what will always give you the main idea. Let's see. Questions first, and then we'll get to the questions that you guys tend to have. What is the protagonist? Okay, now protagonist will always be the main lead. So over here, the protagonist is the girl. So how does the protagonist preference for barrenness and starkness at the Carignano suggest about her personality? So we do know of the fact that Carignano was known to be this very simple place. And the fact that she was also the kind of person, who complimented, or who wanted that kind of simplicity to the extent जब postman आ रहा था उसको मिलने का भी मन नहीं था. She wanted to hide herself so that she couldn't go, and she couldn't, be an audience to even the postman. So that is the kind of alone time that she wanted for herself. So our answer also has to circle around the same idea. Now she enjoys the bustling and vibrant. Now clearly she does not enjoy the bustling. She values simplicity and minimalism in her surroundings. Yes, barrenness. Barren means anything which is not cultivable, anything which is minimal. So she does like that. So definitely can be an answer. Lush and colorful landscape. Now we never talked about the lush and the colorful landscapes. We can assume that would have been a very pretty sight to behold. But in reference to the protagonist, which the specific question is about, we know that it has to be about the loneliness. She seeks constant stimulation and variety in her life. No, stimulation means interest. She was wanting to cut herself from all of the interesting things, only to be able to dive into her own solitude. So we know that she did not require any stimulation. So clearly over here our answer's got to be option B. मैम फर्स्ट लाइन में आइडिया बता के सीखा है क्या सीखते हैं द कॉन्सेप्ट इन सिंपल टर्म मैम वन लाइन में मेन आइडिया बता सकती हैं क्या होता है ओके सो यश मेन आइडिया इज नथिंग बट एक लाइन में तुम किसी को बता दो तुमने क्या समझा पैसेज में दिस इज व्हाट इज अ मेन आइडिया yes okay sorry I also forgot whom is also something that you can add. Thank you so much, Ravila. So that is also something that you can add. Any which ways, getting back to so Yash, a main idea is always going to be एक line में तुम्हें बता देना है कि what have you understood. So if you were to explain this passage to somebody who's not read the passage, understand it like this, जिसने passage नहीं पढ़ा होगा, what would that person understand from reading from what description you give out? And that is exactly what the main idea is going to be. Let's try and see the second question. Now, what do you get to know about the protagonist's state of mind from her reaction towards the postman? So we do know upon reading the passage that the moment the postman came along, she was giving a very incisive stare, wherein that guy, poor thing, because he was, he was just so heavy with his work, he didn't even look up to be seeing how unwelcomed or uninvited he was. So that is the kind of information that I'm again looking. She feels grateful. Now, of course, there was no sense of gratitude. In fact, she was irritated at the very sight of it. So this cannot be an answer. She dislikes any disturbance and interruption in her solitude. Well, that was something that she disliked because she felt as if somebody is coming in her territory. So yes, definitely can be answer. She feels suspicious and is interested. She's not interested. She wants to be merged with the plants, the trees. That is how much she's an antisocial at that. So there is no reason for her to be interested in the lives of others. She is disinterested and generally unaffected. She is disinterested, true, but generally unaffected by the present. She's not unaffected because she was giving him a very cold stare, which means that she wanted him to know that you are not welcomed here. So over here, since only one part of the information seems to be correct or not the other part of the information, which is why our answer over here is going to be option B. Right. So our answer over here is going to be option B. Let's try the next one now. What does the protagonist desire? To be mistaken for a pine tree reveal about her mindset. Now there was this line where she wanted to merge with the pine trees, and she wanted to be one amongst them. That is, she just did not want to, she did not want to be identified. That is why she wanted to be one among the nature. So over here, she desires to be appreciated and noticed. No, she does not want to be noticed. We're looking for a different idea, so this cannot be an answer. She has a deep admiration for beauty. No, she merging into the pine trees was not because of a sense of admiration, but because of the fact that she just did not want to be noticed by anybody. So not an answer again. She feels a sense of superiority over other living beings. There is absolutely what is not said in the passage can never be an answer. This is nowhere in the context, not even close to what we can envision. So again, not so that means she yearns to be one, yearns is to have a very deep desire for. So she yearns to be with nature and escape from her human identity, and which is why she wanted to clearly be one among the trees. Okay, let's try the next one. The protagonist. Now, if you all remember, this was one question which was withdrawn. By saying withdrawn, it means that there was no such information in the passage, and because it was not, it's not that you could not have inferred. Well, a lot of students did attempt to this question, but this was one question since it was never in the passage, so it just doesn't account for being asked at all in the first place. It's just not right. So, which is why whenever you tend to be attempting something which is outside the scope, or if it is something that the consortium understands that this was a oversight, they tend to withdraw the answers. So this was one option which was withdrawn. Okay, let's see. Which of the following statements are true about the protagonist's overall state of mind? So we have to understand overall state of mind. She experienced a sense of constant restlessness, anguish, or pain. She was not restless. We don't know why she was there. Maybe she was there to embrace her loneliness. She was there because she wanted to be there. So we don't know if there was constant restlessness. One cannot be an answer. Anything with one now does not account to be an answer for us. She felt isolated and disconnected. Now she was very much connected with the environment because she wanted to be one. She wanted to just merge into the environment there. So to say that she felt isolated and disconnected, too much of a stretch. Not an answer again. So anything with two cannot be an answer, which means we're only left with one, which makes her answer to be option D. She was content, fulfilled, and in peace with her surrounding. So much to the extent that anybody coming in, even the postman walking down while he was just plodding up his way, was something that she could just not tolerate at all. And the last question, in the light of the above passage, what role does the nature play in the protagonist's life? It brings her a source of creativity. There was nothing creative that we talked about at all. It offers her solace, peace, and a sense of belonging. Solace is to feel very secure about something. So, yes, there was peace and a sense of belonging because she felt that this is where she's supposed to be, and anybody coming in is going to trespass into her own personal space. Makes for an answer. She serves as a reminder of the harsh, nothing about the harsh reality. It serves as a constant source of distraction and intrusion for her. Intrusion was the postman. The postman was a distraction. The question is seeking us, it's asking us as to what is the role of the nature, not about the people who are coming into her space. So our answer over here is going to be option B. All right. That was lovely. A lot of you guys were also simultaneously answering, which was quite fun. Now, there's another passage, but I'm sure the time restraint might not allow us to be picking up because I also have to answer the questions and have to wind up by 6 because another session that needs to begin. But doesn't matter. Next time we pick up the passage. Once we're done with the 4 passages of English is when we'll pick up the 4 passages of CR. And that's how, like I said, in descending order, we are going to pick up all of the passages of CLAT that we have. Now, very quickly, I'm going to take the last 5 minutes to be able to answer the raging questions that are in the comment box. And if there's anything that goes unanswered, please guys know that next time, whenever we meet, make sure that you ping in your answer, and I'd be more than happy and I'd be more than glad to be able to help you guys with it. So, we finished until how to find main idea is done. Stark was also done. मैम सीआर के कॉन्सेप्ट हर चैनल पे अलग अलग बताते हैं and even if they are on legal edge tells there is no example passage given. Please solve the concepts. I will do that, Yash. Your suggestion taken. And when we do CR, I will try and well, I'll hope that the way we are going ahead with critical reasoning, you are able to understand what is it that we're doing, and we'll actually try and put it to application also. So I understand where you're making a lot of sense. There's all talking shop, and that there is no implementation of what is it that you're learning. So CR does not have to just be talked about. It has to also be shown as to how exactly the implementation needs to be done. So point taken, and I'm going to do that. Now, my only problem is that I'm not able to. Okay, I hope you can now map your passages, Arvind. Um, how to improve literature-based passage? So, Action Studio. I well, these are really vibey names at that. But so something that I was just mentioning in the starting, a good idea to pick up or to jumpstart with literature is to just go back to your school time and pick up your literature topics from there. Pick up some really renowned literature authors and start reading about their short stories. Post that, try and elevate onto some more difficult concepts, and that's the only way. So reading is the only way to get ahead on onto on literature stuff. Can I use Drishti monthly? So again, something that I did mention in the starting, you have an amazing compendium that's given by Ellie as well. Finish up with that, and then maybe that's when you can मारो या हाथ पाओ कि किधर और से पढ़ना है उसको. But I think what you have right now is what you need to make full utilize or monetize on what you have. Websites for RC, have you finished the RSMs? If not, first finish on all of that. When you finish with those, Priya, I am here for the long time, for the longest of time right now. I will be able to suggest you, but I really want you to first do the RSMs. Ma'am, for एक line में ये तो हो गया. How to deal? What are the topics? What are the topics to be studied in CLAT English? There's no topic. They're only genres. So there are some 10, 12 genres that I really want you guys to pen down. So take about 4, 5 past mock of yours. Pen down all of the genres that you identify and start reading them and see which of the ones can you actually do well with. So we have summarizing editorials help in yes, yes, of course. So if retaining ideas is a problem, then maybe you can begin with summarizing the editorials. It is really, really going to be helping you out. What exactly do you have to summarize? You have to summarize what you're reading. So something that I just mentioned, एक एक पैराग्राफ को लो, 1.1 1.2 करके उसके जो headings है उसको फटाफट just make sure that you're penning those down. Literature is done. Thank you, thank you. You're most welcome. Ma'am, how to get good in philosophy? Again, Hugh, read. Just go to. So I will just give you this really good article site actually. It's called the Marginalian. So there is a site called the Marginalian. So it's a lot like Aeon, but it has smaller articles. I mean, in terms of the length, it's got shorter articles. Smaller is no count of the length. It's got more interesting and it's got more diverse articles to itself. So maybe this is something that you can inculcate and see if it helps you. मुझे फ्री मॉक्स देने हैं मुझे नहीं पता रिवीलर हाउ विल आई बी एबल टू हेल्प यू विद दैट मैम हाउ टू गेट better in focusing for 2 hours of reading many times yes Arvind it is an exhausting activity which is why break it into smaller parts and then merge it all together so start with 15 minutes and then grow I mean extend it to 20 minutes then sit for 30 minutes in one go and then maybe again for 45 minutes and then one fine day just bring it all together start with smaller targets and then eventually get on to the bigger targets. If you push yourself for 2 hours, you might just develop a certain resentment to 2 hours of, sitting and reading. And that might be a little itchy. So just make sure that that's not something that you're doing. All right, guys. So that's going to be it from my side. I know we could only do one passage, but it is okay. It only makes room for, and it only gives us a guarantee that we ought to be meeting next. I'm going to see you guys next time, and we'll try and at least do two passages so that this is not the speed that we go in. But yes, there's a lot of talking again that we had to do. I hope the information came in handy, and you all could, be able to identify, or you could at least pick up some things that you can inculcate as of your own practice. I'm going to see you guys next time and we'll continue from wherever we left. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good evening.